What's up, party people? So I want to follow up on Tuesday because it hit me, of course, after I hit stop recording, about something else that I had that I didn't know I had at the time that I realized after the fact, several years later, after that 4.5 year kind of window, and that was self-sufficiency. And it came from a comment from another video. Let me see if I can find it. Brett had written in again about one of the biggest misconceptions, and it's true. When I was in the office, we had about 70 guys, and there were a few guys who really, really did well. And a lot of the younger Turks would kind of come in, do what they had to do in the morning, and then little by little, they'd kind of find a way to wander over to, the desk of some of the better traders and just kind of stand there and try to talk to them and this and that. And so there can be an education process if they were mentoring. I don't think it was a mentoring program. It definitely was not a formal one anyway. But a lot of people wanted that reassurance. And I think they were afraid to step out and take the risks, right? And again, the world is very different now. Now trading desks have that kind of built in. But I always knew, I don't want to have to rely on anybody else, because what happens if that person leaves, right? There's lots of attrition. People that started at one firm and now they're at another firm. Well, if that person was at firm A was integral to your success because they kind of fed you ideas and you rode their tailcoats, but then they moved to another company, now what? Right? So I knew inherently that I did not want to rely on anyone. I was always a very autonomous person. I was a self-starter, even from the time I was young, and I was cutting grass and trimming hedges in my neighborhood. I was 12 years old, and I just said, if I remember this vividly, at the time, you wanted to just like today, kids want to have the most, and adults too, probably, they want to have the coolest sneakers, right? That was a big thing when I was younger. Or else you would get the Fruit of the Loom Skippies at the Grand Union or the Vons or the Ralphs, wherever you get your grocery stores, and there'd be, you'd fit them in. They were very affordable. They weren't terribly comfortable and they weren't made very well, but they were affordable. Being that I wanted to be popular and cool like anybody else, there were really two sneakers of the day. Both still exist. One that was the Adidas Superstar, which was the white leather with the black stripes, the low-cut Oxford with the plastic toe-looking thing. That was always around. And then there was Puma Clydes. And the Puma Clyde was after Clyde Frazier. It was probably his endorsement sneaker. He was a New York Knick, and they called them Puma Clydes. And those were the beautiful blue suede leather with the white stripe. And they were $30, adjusting for, well, actually not adjusting. They were $30 back then. And they looked great. Because we didn't really have dress sneakers, if you will, nor did you have these distressed golden goose kind of things. And we didn't have the money for those. And so my father said, look, what you do with your money is your business. And he helped me hockey gear, right? Hockey gear was fantastically expensive. It was then and it is now. And that was really my sport. I started skating when I was 3.5. So in order to get those cool dungarees, the jeans, and the 501s were just coming into the button flies things and this and that. And so you wanted to be hip and be popular with the opposite sex. You had to have the cutting edge popular stuff. And so I just started, some of my friends, Ray and Tom, they had paper routes. We lived on this big hill. It was half a mile up. And one had one side of the hill. The other guy had the other. And that was kind of interesting, but that was an awful lot of work, and you had to lug the papers with you, right? And they were heavy. It was a Gannett newspaper chain, I think, in my hometown in that county. Now it's all kind of lowhud.com, but back then they actually had physical papers, and that paper was called the Reporter's Dispatch. And that served that part of, Putnam County where I was. And so having said that, I said, okay, well, where's my opportunity? Where is there a hole in the community that I could fulfill for everybody else who was unwilling to work or whose parents didn't instill in them that they needed to work? And that was something that my dad made sure that, you got to work. You're going to have to start working sooner or later. And it's good for your discipline, right? So again, we're talking about being self-sufficient. And so I said, okay, well, I was good at cutting grass. I could make the lawn look good. If you let it grow too long before you cut it, now you got clumps of grass. You have to go back and rake it up. Otherwise, if you have a clump of grass and the sun comes out in the blazing hot summertime, it's going to bleach or give shade to the grass underneath. That's going to turn yellow. It doesn't make your lawn look good. So I had a lot of good aesthetic, because some people like manicured lawns. Now, that's important to say because it's going to come up 5 years later. And so what I would do in the summer to make money, so I had more liberty, right? It wasn't like we were completely poor, but I wanted to be able to come and go as I please. That was just my emotional makeup. I would fish, right? We had lots of largemouth bass, crappies, perch, catfish at night. And so I like to fish with my friends. And so in order to fish, you need good gear. You could tackle box, right? So I also funded that. I had a bike. And so when I go back and think about that, I would take I'd have a gas can and a push mower. And I would just go up and down the street and say, hey, you need your lawn done. Your lawn looks long. I was like, oh, I'm going to do it this weekend. Or sure, go ahead and do it. Now, I wouldn't even ask them, like, say I do it for $5. I'd just say, do you want your lawn? Because I'm 12 years old. What the hell do I know? And they would just give me a $5 or a $10 bill, right? So I would do that, save up my money. When the winter came, because in my hometown, we had 4 distinct seasons. So the fall come, the leaves would fall off the tree. California, we don't really have that. Rake the leaves, mulch them, clean the gutters, right, for the winter, maybe dig out some ditches, prepare the lawns for the winter. That was lucrative. When the winter came, first snowfall, I'd be out with the shovel, walking around the same. So I kind of became the little mini landscaper for certain people, especially the older folks whose kids had grown up, had families of their own, and moved away. And this is before the whole cottage industry of landscapers now who have that kind of business. I certainly didn't invent it, but I made a lot of money and became very self-sufficient in those years. And so I'd go back and hit the same people where I would cut their grass, rake their leaves, trim their hedges, clean the gutters. I'd go back and then help them winterize, right? Coming through the fall, winter comes, we would get 6 inches, 12 inches of snow. And I didn't have a snowblower, but I had a snow shovel, and I'd go clean their driveway, clean off their car, clean a path from the front door to the car, that kind of deal. Maybe throw a little salt on the ice so that no one would slip. And that, again, was probably good for $10 a driveway. And on a good snowfall, I could do like 3, 4, 5 driveways in a particular day. And that's kind of what I did in the winter. So I had an idea to be self-sufficient from a very young age, just from my own design, because I wanted to have a certain lifestyle. It felt comfortable for me to do that. Why do I give you that long-winded story? It's because when I hit Wall Street, I was not interested in anyone else's opinion. I remember what everyone's like, oh, Elaine Garzarelli called the stock market crash. I said 50 other people called the crash, right? And now I even know the numbers. Every one of the guys who I know with or work with in, Market Wizards, they were all short the market. It wasn't a big surprise to anybody. But when you're in retail space, you don't know any better. Because why? You're looking for tips. You think that there's some kind of fix when there's not. There's really just a good model that's appropriate for you. And so I didn't want to, I also felt like it was humiliating, now that I think about it, to have to go in to see these guys to start small talk about, yeah, hey, how about them Yankees? Or, how about the Rangers? And, eventually get into like, well, what is it? What are you looking at these days? What do you think? You see the move on Sun Microsystems, or did you see the move on whatever the darlings of the day were? And they were smart. They knew what was going on. And I just didn't want to be in that spot emotionally for myself. I didn't want to have to rely on anybody else. So I never really asked them advice on that front. So I feel like if you're on the institution side and things are difficult, you might have to morph your trading style. Certainly trading smaller can be beneficial in these times. 2, NVIDIA had a big move recently, and I had a lot of folks write me and said, like, man, how come I didn't see that, this, that, or the other thing? And it's like, you have to remember, if a thing could be up $80 a day, it certainly could be down $80 a day, right? So you can't look at it and just say, well, I didn't have a model to get me into this outlier event. No one would have predicted that, right? Nobody was calling for that kind of a move. They'll all take credit for doing so because they're sheep, right? But at the end of the day, the thing that saved me again from mad cow when I was long cattle was my position sizing, which has remained consistent, which is one of the benefits of not being a discretionary trader, in that the position size is largely the same regardless of the instrument, regardless of long or short. So this will come for you if you're newer by making your attempts and developing it that way, because you have to be in the game. Simulating is good. Paper trading is okay. It certainly helps you learn how to work and enter orders, but it doesn't necessarily help you because you never feel the burn of making or losing money, you see? So I think the goal should be to be autonomous, to be self-sufficient, and to eat your own cooking. That's the fastest way to learn. The more you're going to lean on other people or alert services or otherwise, to me, you're stunting your own growth, because the growth is on the 80% of the side of self-knowledge, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, your trader psychology. If you're leaning on other people for your trading ideas, your trader psychology is telling me that you don't feel secure enough in your own skills yet to do this. And that makes it hard for anyone to want to hire you, right? If you're subscribing, I always mention Jim Cramer, not because I have anything against him. He's super bright. He knows more about stocks in his left pinky than I'll ever know. I do think it's challenging for him to play, I think, as a trader versus being a public persona, right? I think he'd probably do a lot better if he didn't have to be on TV all the time, right? Because he had a great track record as a trader, for sure. But the more you have to rely on outside stuff, it can tell you a lot about your psychology. So I'll leave you with that, because you can go, only you know what it is. If you want to think about that and reach out to me, I'm happy to help you. But in the meantime, that's kind of the deal, is like when you have your own model, right, that's compatible with who you are as a person, then you're self-sufficient. You don't have to rely on anyone or anything for the rest of your life. So it's like your little formula for Coca-Cola, and it's uniquely yours, and no one can take it away from you. So that's why I don't listen to the TV. I don't subscribe to anything. I do my own work. Admittedly, when you're starting out and you have to cut your own teeth, that's the scary part, because it's life without a net. But feel that burn and embrace it, because that's what's going to help shape you, right? You're culturing your own little pearl there, okay? Anyway, please like and subscribe, as everyone says, on their YouTube channel. Click the little belly thing so you can get alerts when we do videos, which is probably every day. And please keep your comments coming, your suggestions, because it helps move the conversation forward. That's all today, though, folks, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, everybody, thanks for being here. Please take a minute, like and subscribe to the show. You could also leave a comment. I don't have all the answers, so it's good to get some feedback. Also, if you would like to support the show, check out the links below. You can get the free audiobook of The Inner Voice of Trading, and also information about the course that I teach with Victor Sperandio. Thanks for being here, folks. I'll see you tomorrow.